Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 4 of the Spring Chick Ornament tutorial. This is the Spring Chick Ornament that we are making. It is so cute and colorful. And today we're going to be doing the triangle called Spring Chick. If you haven't done parts 1, 2, and 3 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those 3 videos listed down below in the description. Once you finish this one, you can go back and watch those 3. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using today are all Miyuki Delicas. I have white pearl AB, lined pale pink, opaque yellow AB, opaque black, and silver lined orange. Just to make it easy, I'm going to call this white, pink, yellow, black, and orange. We're also going to need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color Crystal, and I use the 4-pound. You can also use a 6-pound thread. And then I also like to use a size 10 beading needle. You can use a size 12 if you'd like. For implements, I always have my long nose pliers and I cut my thread with scissors. And then in the beginning, I like to end my tail with the fire method, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. Last but not least, we'll need one of these plastic crafting ornaments. We're not going to use it in today's video, but to complete the project altogether, you'll want to get your hands on one of these. It's a 2.36 inch plastic crafting ornament. I get them in the 12-pack at my local hobby store, but if you just want to buy them individually, I also have them available in my Etsy shop. Alrighty, those are the materials that we need to start this project. So let's thread our needle with 3 feet of thread and then we can get started. Okay, so I have threaded my needle and now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads. 1 yellow, 1 orange, and 1 yellow. And then I'm going to take those 3 beads and I'm going to pull them down to the bottom of the thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Then I'm going to tie a square knot, which means I'm going to cross over and then I'm going to pull the tail through. And then I'm going to cross over on the top, making a top loop, and then pull that tail through the top loop. So we have what looks like a little snowman. Now I'm going to stick 2 fingers in the lower loop, the one that has the beads, and I'm going to pull the top loop tight into a knot. Now I'm going to take the tail and I'm not going to touch it to the flame. I'm just going to get it super close. And what it does is it melts the tip of the thread into this little teensy knot. Now I'm going to keep my fingers in the loop while pulling on the long thread and turning the loop in circles until that tail thread knot touches the long thread. Just like that. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull that knot down to the beads. And I'm going to try to get the beads as tight in a little triangle as possible. And trying also to get that knot to lean closer to one of those 2 yellow beads. So If it's kind of in the center, just kind of pull it to one side or the other. It doesn't really matter which one. So now it looks like the thread is coming out of this bead. So now we're ready to start row number 2, which means that we get to pick up 2 yellow beads. And we're coming out of this, well, it looks like we're coming out of this bead, so we're going to sew through the bead that we're not coming out of. And we're going to try to make these beads sit right on top of the beads that they're next to. So it looks like this. Now we get to pick up 2 more beads, 1 yellow and 1 orange. Coming out of this yellow bead, we're going to sew through the orange bead. And once again, we're going to try to get those beads to sit right on top of the beads below it. Let's pick up 2 more beads, 1 orange and 1 yellow. And we're coming out of this orange bead. We're going to sew through this yellow bead and also the yellow bead below it. So we're sewing through 2 beads, which means that we have completed row number 2 and we're ready to start row number 3. And this is what you should have so far. So starting row number 3, let's pick up 2 yellow beads and sew through the next bead. And now let's pick up 1 black bead. We're coming out of this yellow bead, and then you'll notice there's a bead that's kind of sitting downward, and then there's a bead that's kind of popping out, that's up. So we're going to call that the down bead. We're going to call this the up bead. The one that's sticking out is the up bead. That's the one that we want to sew through. And from now on, we're going to sew through up beads or corner beads. We happen to be on a corner because this is a triangle, so there's 3 corners, right? So each time we have a corner, we're going to add 2 beads. Let's add 2 yellow beads. And then sew through the orange bead. Now we can pick up 1 orange. Skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through the up bead. Now we're at a corner again. Let's pick up 2 yellow beads. And sew through the next. And now let's pick up 1 black bead. This is the last bead in this row. So we're coming out of this bead, we're going to skip the down bead and we're going to sew through the up bead, and we're also going to sew through the bead right below that. Sewing through 2 beads means that we're stepping up to the next row. So let's start row number 4. Let's pick up 2 yellow beads and sew through the next bead. One black, sew through the black bead. 1 black, and sew through the up bead. turning while I'm working to make it easier for me to hold on to my thread and sew through the beads. Let's pick up 2 yellow beads and sew through the next bead. Let's pick up 1 yellow and sew through, oh, it doesn't want to get on my needle, and sew through the up bead. Pick up 1 yellow and sew through the up bead. Turning my work. Let's pick up 2 yellow beads and sew through the next. One black bead and sew through the up bead, which is black. And our last bead in this row is 1 black bead. We're skipping the down bead. We're going to sew through the up bead and the bead next to it. That completes row number 4. Let's start row number 5. Let's pick up 2 yellow beads. Oh. And sew through the next. One yellow and sew through the up. Let's pick up 1 white bead and sew through the up, and 1 yellow bead and sew through the up. At the corner, we'll pick up 1 soft pink and 1 yellow. One yellow, one yellow, one yellow. At the corner, we'll pick up 1 yellow and 1 pink. One yellow, one white, and our last bead in this row is 1 yellow. Skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through 2 beads, stepping up, and now we get to start row number 6. Let's start with 2 yellow beads, one yellow, one black, one black, one yellow, one pink, and one yellow. One yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, and 1 pink. One yellow, one black, one black, and one yellow. Skipping the down bead, let's sew through the up bead and the bead next to that. So we've sewn through 2 beads this time, as we always do when we complete a row. And now we have completed row number 6. Let's start row number 7 by picking up 2 pink beads, one pink, one yellow, one black, one yellow, one pink, at the corner we'll pick up 1 pink and 1 yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow and 1 pink, one pink, one yellow, one black, one yellow, and 1 pink. Okay, that completes our 7th row. And since this is considered our top tier triangle in our project, it's only going to go as high as our 7th row. So we're not going to add any beads right here. What we're going to do is we're just going to, without picking up any beads, we're just going to sew through the next bead. And that puts our thread in position to start row number 8. If you notice, I'm going off of a pattern, and I make these designs and I write out the patterns, and then I post them on my Etsy shop. So if you would prefer to go off of the pattern like on a piece of paper in front of you, then go ahead and head over to my Etsy shop and pick up your pattern. If you don't want to do that, you are more than welcome to just keep following along with this video, whatever works best for you. Alrighty, starting row number 8, we're going to start with 1 yellow bead, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 'My beads just caught onto something on my table. Hold on, let me adjust that real quick. I hope that works better. Okay. 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 pink, at the corner we'll pick up 1 pink and 1 yellow, 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 at the corner we'll pick up 1 yellow and 1 pink, 1 pink, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow. Alrighty, now let's flip our triangle over so that we're coming out of this top right bead, and we're going to start row number 9 by picking up 1 pink, and we're coming out of the top of this one. We're just going to sew down this first up bead. Pick up 1 pink, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 pink, 1 pink, at the corner we'll pick up 1 pink and 1 yellow, 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 1 yellow. At the corner, 1 yellow and 1 pink. One pink, one pink, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one pink, and our last bead is 1 pink. Now we don't have an up bead to sew through, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew down this pink bead that's already in place, and we're going to make sure that the bead that we just put on sits right up against that pink bead that we sewed through. Now we're coming out of this pink bead. Let's sew down the yellow bead right below it, and then sew up the bead right next to the one that we are coming out of. Also sew through the pink bead that we initially sewed through. And finally, let's sew down the bead that we just put on. So now our thread is coming out of the bead that we just put on, and it's pointing downwards. Let's turn our triangle so that we now can sew down this row, which is row number 10. Starting with 1 pink bead, one pink, one yellow, one yellow, one pink, one pink, one pink, at the corner we'll pick up 2 pink beads, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, one yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow. At the corner, let's add 2 pink beads. One pink, one pink, one pink, one yellow, one yellow, one pink, and one pink. Alrighty, that completes row 10. Let's flip our triangle over, and now we are coming out of this top right bead, pointing upwards. Let's start row number 11 with 1 pink bead, one pink, one pink, one yellow, one pink, one pink, one pink, one pink. At the corner, we'll pick up 2 pink beads, one pink, one yellow, 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 one pink. At the corner, we'll pick up 2 pink beads, one pink, one pink, one pink, one pink, one yellow, one pink, one pink, and one pink. This is the one that we have to turn around with. So we have our bead on our needle. We're going to sew down the top bead, and we're going to make sure that that new bead that we've just put on sits where it's supposed to. Sometimes you have to nudge it into place. And now we're coming out of this middle pink bead. So we're going to sew down the yellow bead. And now coming out of the yellow bead, we're going to sew up the bead right next to that one. Now we're going to sew up that middle top bead and down the new bead that we just put on. Now we're going to flip over our triangle so that our thread is now pointing down on the right hand side, coming out of that top bead. Okay, so now we get to start row number 12. My question for the day, I always do a question of the day somewhere around row 12. My question of the day is, my next design is going to be a Christmas theme. So I think I've decided to do like, it's around Easter time, 2025 right now. So that's why I'm doing an Easter theme. Then I'll do a Christmas. And then I'll do, what is the next one? Like April, May, maybe flowers. And then I will do a Christmas theme. And then another one like 4th of July. And then I'll do a Christmas theme. So with that in mind, are there any Christmas themes, ideas that you can give me? Like, what type of Christmas theme ornament would you like to see me do? Let me know down below in the comments, and or if you just have like a favorite Christmas theme altogether, or maybe a favorite Christmas character. That would be fun to make a character ornament, right? So just let me know your thoughts and ideas down in the comments. Every little bit helps me figure out, my creative processes, trying to figure out what my next project's going to be. And I want it to be something that you love too. So let me know down in the comments. Okay, starting row number 12, let's start with one pink bead. One pink. 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 We're at the corner. Let's pick up two pink beads. One pink. One pink. One pink. One yellow. One yellow. One yellow. One yellow. One pink. 1 pink, 1 pink, at the corner, 2 pink, 1 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 pink, and 1 pink. This is the last bead in row 12, so let's flip our triangle. Now we are coming out of this top right hand bead, pointing upwards, and now we get to start adding our connecting rows. If this is the first triangle that you've ever done with me, then just know that the triangles are generally 12 rows of beads, and then we start connection rows so that we can connect our triangles together. Some of the sides are going to have connection beads and then some of them are not. In this case, the right side is going to have connector beads and the bottom is going to have connector beads, but the left-hand side is not going to have connector beads. So let me show you how that's done. We'll start with picking up 1 pink bead, 1 pink, 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 1 pink. Now at the corner, we're going to cap the corner off with 1 pink bead, turning that corner into a point, just like that. And now let's add 1 pink bead, 1 pink, 1 pink, 1 yellow, 1 yellow, 1 yellow. Oh, that's not yellow, that's a white bead. Let me back out of that, get that white out of the way. One yellow, and 1 yellow, 1 pink, 1 pink, and one pink. Now we're at the corner again. Let's cap this corner, turning it into a point by adding one pink bead. And now we are finished adding beads. We're just going to secure this bead and cut our thread. So I'm going to flip it over because it's easier for me to sew this way. I don't know why, but I always follow this edge and it just makes it so much easier to sew for me. So hopefully that works well for you too, because that's how I always do it. And we're not picking up any beads. We're just going to sew up 6 beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're coming out of this bead. We're going to zigzag. We're going to go down the bead next to it and up the bead right next to that one. Zigzagging it makes this bead more secure. Now I'm going to sew up 2 more beads. 1, 2. I'm going to zigzag again. So down the next bead and up the bead next to that one. Now I'm going to sew up 2 more beads. 1, 2, and now I feel like this corner bead is super secure. It's not going to come loose while we're attaching all of our units together, and that will be in the next video. And so now we can cut our thread. So I'm going to take my long nose pliers and hold on to my thread, and then I'm going to take my scissors and get them as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead, and cut that thread. Now we have completed our spring chick triangle. We only need 5 of these, so go ahead and rewind this video and do this 4 more times, and I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.